Come see us on tour in Hartford, Connecticut, Syracuse, Atlantic City, Levittown, New York, Co-Host, New York, Providence, Rhode Island, Los Angeles, Bakersfield, San Jose, Toledo, Ohio, and Toronto, Ontario. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets. So Israel has broken the ceasefire, as they said they would in January, which was underreported, and now they're doing it. They've broken every ceasefire ever. Here's the press secretary.
Well, the Trump administration and the White House were consulted by the Israelis on their attacks in Gaza tonight. And as President Trump has made it clear, Hamas, the Houthis, Iran, all those who seek to terrorize not just Israel, but also the United States of America will see a price to pay. All hell will break loose.
Okay, so all hell has already broken loose. They've already killed hundreds of thousands of people. Their genocide, Gaza is flattened. And Israel has broken the ceasefire. Hamas did not break the ceasefire. Israel did. Once again, broken the ceasefire with the Palestinians in Gaza, or what Israelis refer to as Wednesday. Trump gave Israel the green light to restart large-scale bombing in Gaza. The U.S. is backing Israel's escalation by blaming the slaughter of Palestinians on Hamas. But as I'm going to show you right now, Hamas actually lived up to it. Watch this. So, AIPAC tweets out, the ceasefire is over because Hamas refused to free more hostages. Well, that's a lie. That's a lie. Why? Because Israel and Hamas agreed to a three-phase hostage release and ceasefire deal. Israel refused to move to the second phase. Hamas insisted Israel stick to their agreement. Israel then cut off all food, medicine, and other supplies to Gaza. It's now fully breaking the ceasefire. So they broke the ceasefire. Israel did it again. Hamas lived up to it, and now they're going to say, well, they're not releasing the hostages. Well, there was a deal in place, a three-phase deal to release them. And how long is it going to take you to realize that Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu does not want the hostages released? They want the hostages released as much as Johnny Depp wants to get back with Amber Heard. They do not want those hostages released because then they can use that as a reason to go bomb the shit out of them and take over the West Bank and the rest of Gaza. That's what this has always been about, and they played you like a sucker if you think that's what's happening. This is happening right in your face. They're doing this right in your face. The U.S. strongly backed Israel at the UN Security Council on Tuesday, claiming the blame for the escalation lies solely with Hamas. The U.S. and Israel are justifying the escalation by pointing to Hamas's rejection of a U.S. proposal for temporary ceasefire. Hamas has maintained that it wanted the full implementation of the ceasefire deal reached in January, which would have led to an Israeli withdrawal, a permanent ceasefire, and the release of the remaining Israeli hostages in Gaza. Israel repeatedly violated this agreement, including by imposing a total blockade on aid and all other goods entering Gaza, and they did that on March 2nd. A Palestinian journalist in Gaza said a total of 6 families, so they're just wiping out families. They're not wiping out soldiers, they're not going after Hamas, they're wiping out fathers and grandparents and children. That's what they're doing. Breaking, Israel resumes war on Gaza. Israel's Prime Minister's office said Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel's defense minister have instructed the military to take forceful action against Hamas in the Gaza Strip. Medical sources in northern Gaza have confirmed to Dropsite News that aerial bombardments are being heard across the entire Gaza Strip, from north to south, everywhere, literally everywhere. Jonathan Cook says, so The Guardian tweets that they print this. Israel and the United States officials blame Hamas for the renewed violence, saying the Islamist militant organization has refused to release more of the 59 hostages it holds in Gaza, thus breaking the ceasefire agreement that came into effect in January. Hamas said hostage releases were due only during a scheduled second phase that Israel agreed in January, but has since refused to discuss or implement. So the Guardian isn't telling you, they're just doing a he said, she said. Jonathan Cook says, Guardian, this isn't a he said, she said issue. The ceasefire agreement was clear. The last Israelis would be freed in the second phase. Israel refused to honor the agreement and enter the next phase. They chose a return to genocide. Pretending this is debatable isn't journalism. It's Israeli propaganda. It's collusion and genocide. Israel also didn't keep up their end of phase one by allowing in a specific number of aid vehicles per day. They didn't even live up to their the phase one bargain. The Israelis barely let any trucks in and no vehicles with shelters per the agreement. Israel is not an honorable, good faith actor to any agreement made with them. And here's Noam Chomsky. You don't have to like him. I disagree with him on things. He's going to explain to you, though, exactly how Israel breaks every ceasefire. Here we go.
Hamas are not my friends. I don't like what they do. But
Hamas are not my friends. They're not my friends either. I don't like what they do. I don't like what they do. Here, but
they've been doing not much. What they've been doing is what I described. Starting in November 2005, an agreement was reached between Israel and the Palestinian Authority, then not Hamas. Israel completely rejected it, and Hamas lived up to it, not a single rocket. Then came the January election, and Israel intensified its attack with U.S. support. After that, there are repeated attacks, Israeli attacks, and ceasefires agreements. Every ceasefire agreement is approximately like what I read. What happens is Israel completely dismisses and disregards it, and maintains the siege in violation of the ceasefire, increases the violence. Hamas lives up to it, and Israel officially accepts that, agrees to that, until some escalation of Israeli violence leads to a Hamas reaction, and then another episode of mowing the lawn. That's been going on since November 2005. Hamas is not a nice organization. They do a lot of rotten things. That's for the Palestinians to worry about. But it has nothing to do with us. If we were supporting Hamas, nothing, zero. If we were supporting Hamas, it would be our problem. But we're not. And what they do is for Palestinians to deal with. What we deal with is what we are doing, which is supporting massive criminal operations all over the region, blocking peace. That's for us to be concerned about. Those who are supporting Hamas can worry about Hamas.
Benjamin Netanyahu supporting Hamas. Left on the News says the reason Israel was free to resume its massive genocidal bombing campaign is that they spent a week or more absolutely starving the people of Gaza, and the world didn't do a goddamn thing to stop them. How did the IOF wipe out entire families within hours? The plan relied on Where's Daddy? That's an AI system that tracked Palestinians to target individuals when they were home with their families, ensuring that they would bomb entire families. Straight on an empty stomach. An article from Mary V Online detailing the premeditated plan to break the ceasefire, timed during Sahur to target and annihilate families gathered for a meal. They wanted to hit as many as possible with the first strike. The plan was to drop hundreds of bombs simultaneously. Now, you got to listen to this. Caitlin Johnson gets it right. She says, this is Trump's genocide now. It is. This is Trump's genocide. Trump is just as culpable for what happens in Gaza as Netanyahu, just as guilty as Biden was during the last administration. Trump signed off on the reignition of the Gaza Holocaust. He spent weeks sabotaging the ceasefire and then gave the thumbs up to the resumption of the genocide. He did this while bombing Yemen and threatening war with Iran for Israel. This is your America First president doing this. I don't know why Trump has done these things. Maybe it's all for the Adelson cash. Maybe Epstein recorded him doing something unsavory with a minor during their long association and gave it to Israel intelligence for blackmail purposes. Maybe he owed somebody a favor for bailing him out of his business failures in the past. Maybe he's just a psychopath who enjoys murdering children. I don't know, and it doesn't really matter. What matters is that he did it, and he is responsible for these actions. Netanyahu so this was from January 20th when they did the ceasefire. Haaretz. This is the Jewish newspaper, Israeli newspaper. Netanyahu is lying to Trump and preparing to sabotage the Gaza ceasefire deal. So the Jews, Israel knew this back in January, that he was going to do this. And so they're the ones doing it. It's not Hamas. So if you think this is Hamas could release the hostages, they had a deal to release the hostages, and they don't want them to release them, which is why they sabotage them. Because if they did release the hostages, then they would have to come up with another reason why they are slaughtering people, doing a genocide, ethnic cleansing Gaza and the West Bank. So that's why they don't want to fulfill the ceasefire deal, because Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't want Hamas to release the hostages, because if the hostages were released, then they wouldn't have a reason to give you to go slaughter everybody in Palestine and take it over. That's why they broke the ceasefire. That's not according to me. That's not according to MSNBC. That's according to the Israeli newspaper, Haaretz. President Trump and his envoy refused to let Netanyahu's games and excuses delay the signing of a ceasefire deal that would free the hostages and end the Gaza war. But Netanyahu is still scheming to sink the deal. And with it, the hostages. So that the people in Israel are protesting against Netanyahu because they know he doesn't care about the hostages. He knows he wants them dead. The same Netanyahu who eventually signed the agreement has been telling his domestic political allies that he has no intention of honoring and implementing the ceasefire deal. This is from Haaretz. After one of the extremist messianic parties in his governing coalition quit because of the agreement and another threatened to do so if the agreement is honored in full, Netanyahu promised both that the ceasefire he signed is only temporary and that soon enough he will order to renew the war, and by doing so sacrifice the lives of about half of the living hostages currently held in Gaza. Ben Gvir to rejoin it. So the guy who quit, because the psychopath in the Israeli government who quit because Netanyahu signed a ceasefire deal, is now back because they broke the ceasefire. Smotrich says Israel has been planning resumption of Gaza slaughter since the new IDF chief took over. When the Gaza ceasefire deal was first reached, Smotrich said Netanyahu assured him that the genocidal war would resume after the first phase, and that's exactly what happened. This isn't some conspiracy theory spread by Netanyahu's opponents and critics. These are the words coming directly from his own loyalists and supporters. On Sunday, while the vast majority of Israelis were celebrating the return of 3 brave women hostages, an achievement celebrated by Trump, the Israeli pundit most affiliated with Netanyahu, Amit Segal, crashed the party. He's announcing on television that he expects only 10 of the 94 hostages still in Gaza to be released before Netanyahu honors his promise to the far-right finance minister Smotrich and renew the war. Segal isn't making this up out of thin air. He's speaking directly to Netanyahu and Smotrich and hearing them for what their plans are. So if you still think that Hamas is the people who are breaking the ceasefire, and why don't they just release the hostages? It's because they had a deal to release them, and everybody in Israel knows that Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't want those hostages released. That's why he's breaking the ceasefire, because he wants to take over the rest of Palestine and the West Bank. That's what this was always about, and that's what's happening. And Trump's going along with it, and including threatening Iran, which is World War III. Netanyahu has 2 ways to sink the agreement. Well, he performed the same exercise, so he did it. The second option is to provoke an outbreak of violence in the West Bank. That's what he did. The tinder is already flaring there. Extremist settlers set fires to homes and cars in several Palestinian villages on Sunday night, at the same time as millions of Israelis were celebrating the 3 hostages' return. Again, this is being spelled out by Netanyahu's cheerleaders, not his opponents. I'm not making this up. It's the people closest to Benjamin Netanyahu who are telling you what they're doing. They're doing this. All one has to do to learn about this is watch the pro-Netanyahu media outlet, Channel 14, which has been telling its viewers ever since last week that the ceasefire deal is temporary. Phase 2 won't happen, and Netanyahu will honor his commitments to Smotrich, his commitments to start the genocide again. In his nearly 2 months in office, President Trump has rushed military aid to Israel, approving over $12 billion in arms deals and sending 2,000-pound bombs to Israel. Trump has also repeatedly called for the permanent expulsion of Palestinians from Gaza, emboldening the members of the Israeli government whose goal is ethnic cleansing. Glenn Greenwald says, so this woman, Abby Libby, tweets out, there are no civilians in Gaza. Hamas has drafted everyone, down to the newest babies, into the war effort. And they rejoice when the children they shove into the line of fire die because it's their most powerful weapon against those they hate more than life and blood. Glenn says, classifying babies as guilty combatants in order to justify eradicating them and arguing that an entire population of 2 million people are legitimate targets for slaughter was the foundation of the Nazi Holocaust and every war crime in history. So now who's the Nazis? Dan Cohen says, I'm an American Jew and spent several months working in Gaza as a journalist. Hamas could have easily harmed me, taken me captive, or killed me, but it took extra measures to protect me while never interfering in my work. Hamas is resisting against genocide, just like the Jews of the Warsaw Ghetto resisted against the Nazis. Zionists are today's Nazis, and they have such influence in the United States government that the White House press secretary mentions Israel before her own country. The United States does not have sovereignty under Zionism, and allowing this fifth column to influence our country will destroy it. Let's remember what Donald Trump said in 2015. Sheldon Adelson is looking to give big dollars to Marco Rubio because he feels he can mold him into his perfect little puppet. I agree. Well, that's exactly what happened to Donald Trump. And this is Israel first, America last. This is starting genocide in Yemen, supporting a genocide in Gaza, West Bank, and starting World War III with Iran. Because Iran signed a treaty with Russia, and so if we attack Iran, it's like we're attacking Russia. And that is the tinder for World War III. And that's what Donald Trump is getting us into right now. And MAGA should be pissed off about this. And if you're not, you're a chump and a sucker and a dupe. Come see us on tour in Hartford, Connecticut, Syracuse, Atlantic City, Levittown, New York, Cohost, New York, Providence, Rhode Island, Los Angeles, Bakersfield, San Jose, Toledo, Ohio, and Toronto, Ontario. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.